History is full of betrayal, and when people get wronged, they don't always let it slide. Some take revenge so far it makes Hollywood look tame. Let's dive into some of the most insane and slightly unhinged revenge stories ever. Renaissance Italy, a place of art, culture, and casual assassination attempts during church services. In 1478, the Pazzi family, jealous of the powerful Medici clan, decided to take them out. They even got Pope Sixtus IV in on the plan because apparently the Pope also had beef with the Medicis. The grand idea? Kill Lorenzo de' Medici and his brother Giuliano during Easter Sunday Mass in Florence Cathedral. Giuliano was stabbed 19 times, but Lorenzo escaped with just a minor shoulder wound. And if history has taught us anything, it's that you never leave a Medici alive. After the conspiracy, Lorenzo didn't just survive, he thrived. His revenge was swift and absolutely brutal. Conspirators were dragged through the streets, publicly executed, and hanged from government buildings as human warning signs. Jacopo de' Pazzi was thrown out of a window, his corpse beaten by an angry mob just to make sure he got the message. Even people who might have been involved were either killed, exiled, or financially ruined. The Pope also became furious at the Medicis for being too violent and excommunicated Florence, leading to a 2-year war with the Medicis that was almost disastrous for the city. But the most important effect was that Lorenzo's position was strengthened, who not only got rid of his most dangerous enemies but was also shown to have the solid support of the people. The French Revolution was a mess. People were losing their heads left and right, and nobody was safe. Jean-Paul Marat, a revolutionary leader, was so paranoid that he basically lived in his bathtub, signing execution orders while soaking in warm water. Enter Charlotte Corday, a noblewoman-turned-actress who had seen too many of her friends get guillotined. She decided that if no one else was going to stop Marat, she would. In July 1793, she sweet-talked her way into his home, claiming she had vital information about anti-revolutionaries. Marat let her in to gain the valuable information. As he wrote down names for his next purge, Corday pulled out a knife and stabbed him right in the chest. After killing Marat, she didn't run nor hide, but sat there and waited for the Jacobins to arrest her, fully prepared to face the guillotine. 4 days later, she got her wish. But here's the twist. Within a year, the revolution turned on itself. Robespierre, Marat's buddy, was executed. The Reign of Terror collapsed, and the rest of history came down to this short dude who did pretty amazing things. In 12th century Japan, loyalty and betrayal often decided life and death. The Soga Brothers, Tsukunari and Tokimune, were just children when their father was murdered by the powerful samurai lord Kudo Suketsune. Their family had been dishonored, and their father's killer continued to thrive under the shogun's rule. But the brothers vowed they would have vengeance, no matter how long it took. For 18 years, they trained relentlessly, sharpening their sword skills and their patience. Then, in 1193, their moment arrived. Kudo was attending a grand hunting event with the shogun. The Soga brothers sneaked into the camp at night, found Kudo sleeping, and, well, let's just say he didn't wake up. Of course, things got messy after that. Samurai guards attacked, and though the brothers fought like demons, Tsukunari was killed in the battle, falling honorably after avenging their father. Tokimune was captured and brought before the shogun. Knowing his fate was sealed, he stood proudly, declaring, "My father has been avenged." The shogun, while impressed by his bravery, had no choice but to order his execution. For decades, Geronimo, the legendary Apache warrior, waged a relentless war of vengeance against the Mexican and American forces that had slaughtered his family. In 1851, a group of Mexican soldiers led by Colonel José María Carrasco attacked an Apache camp in Sonora, killing Geronimo's mother, wife, and 3 children while he was away. When he returned to find their lifeless bodies, something inside him changed forever. Swearing vengeance, Geronimo vowed that he would not rest until he had avenged their deaths. From that moment on, he became a fearless and brutal warrior, leading countless raids against Mexican and later American forces. Geronimo's revenge was not swift, but it was relentless. He led a series of raids across northern Mexico, ambushing soldiers, burning settlements, and executing those responsible for the massacre of his people. For decades, he led ambushes, disappeared into the desert like a ghost, and escaped captivity more times than anyone thought humanly possible. In the end, after 30 years of resistance, he was finally captured in 1886. Forced to live out his days as a prisoner, he may have lost the war, but his legend lives on. In 1218, the Mongol leader, eager to expand his trade network, sent a caravan of merchants to the wealthy Khwarezmian Empire, expecting silk, spices, and maybe a friendly handshake. Instead, the governor of Otrar accused them of spying, had them arrested, and, just to make sure he really angered the most dangerous man on earth, had them all executed. Genghis Khan, being a reasonable man, sent a polite follow-up inquiry in the form of 3 envoys demanding an explanation. The Khwarezmian Shah, proving that some people are just born to make bad decisions, killed one of the envoys and mutilated the others. It was at this moment that the Khwarezmian Empire signed its own death warrant. What followed was not a war, it was a biblical-level catastrophe. In 1219, Genghis Khan unleashed his Mongol horde, and to call it a military campaign would be an understatement. City after city fell, not just conquered but systematically obliterated. Bukhara and Samarkand were burned to the ground, their populations either massacred or sold into slavery. Otrar, the city that started it all, suffered an especially creative fate. Its governor was executed by having molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. Meanwhile, the Shah fled across his once mighty empire like a man being chased by death itself, only to die in exile on a barren island in the Caspian Sea. Genghis Khan made sure that every last trace of the Khwarezmian dynasty was wiped from history, turning an empire into a cautionary tale for anyone thinking of crossing the Mongols. Nothing ruins a good Easter celebration quite like an armed rebellion, but that's exactly what happened in Palermo, Sicily. In 1282, the island had been suffering under French Angevin rule, and by suffering, we mean crushing taxes, land confiscations, and French soldiers treating the locals like dirt. The Sicilians, growing increasingly resentful, were just waiting for an excuse to strike back. That excuse came on Easter Monday when a drunken French soldier allegedly harassed a Sicilian woman outside a church during Vespers. The response was swift. The locals pulled out their knives and stabbed him to death. Within hours, the people of Palermo went on a French hunting spree, killing every soldier, tax collector, and noble they could find. What started as a defensive killing turned into a full-scale island-wide uprising. In a matter of weeks, thousands of Frenchmen had been slaughtered, and the Angevin government in Sicily was wiped out. But the Sicilians didn't stop at revenge. They played the political game like pros. Needing a powerful ally, they invited Peter III of Aragon, whose wife had a claim to the throne, to take over. Peter happily obliged, sailing in with his fleet and officially evicting the French from Sicily with extreme prejudice. Finally, the revolt ultimately sparked the War of the Sicilian Vespers that lasted 20 years, ending French rule and making Sicily part of Aragon.